about the confusion. While I was setting this up, I totally forgot to, you know, do the whole fun thing where I had a mic so you could hear me, kind of thing. So that's my bad, everyone. I'm sorry about that, but yeah, we're back now. We actually have audio. I'm gonna double check this on my actual. Um, yep, there we go. Audio's right there, so that's good. And the way I have to do with this is, I'm sure there's a better way to set this up, but I don't know. It's possible. I am got the phone and the Legion Go right there, so I can keep an eye on chats. But yeah, as the title says, we are ranking the Nintendo systems. We're doing a tier rank system. I don't even know if we need a D rank. I don't know if Nintendo ever made a D rank system, at least in my opinion, because after all, this kind of thing is my opinion. So let me expand this all the way so we don't have everything. And let's make this its own tab so you don't have to see all my other tabs there. There we go. That's much better. We do have ads on the sides though. But yeah, so we're going to rank them. And I guess, I don't know if we should go in the order of the way this is set up right here, or if I should go in order of release. I mean, it will get a little fuzzy with the handhelds about when they were released, but let's just go in order. We'll go in release order. Let's do release order. I think that'll be the best way to do it. So yeah. So obviously, if we're going in release order, the first up is the Nintendo Entertainment System. And, well, I should say while I'm doing this, the rankings may change. The early stuff might get put on a list, and then after I've got everything up there, I think I will line it all up and be like, this is the final list, kind of thing like that. So, and I can honestly say, with the exception of the Switch Lite, I think that's what it's called. I've played all the systems, but I'm going to basically kind of lump this in a little bit with the Switch as far as playability and things like that go. There'll be other reasons why I rank things the way I rank them. But here we go. Let's start off with the Nintendo Entertainment System. Solid system. I mean, literally, if you have had the opportunity to go back and play older systems, this one was the game changer right here, because Atari, some of the games are fun on Atari, but really it's really hard to go back and play an Atari system. Like Pitfall maybe, but everything else on the Atari, even like Pac-Man for the Atari, is not very good. So when Nintendo came out with the Nintendo Entertainment System, or the Famicom in Japan, this was a game changer, because like if you play modern games, if you've grown up with modern games, you can go back and play a lot of NES games and have a ton of fun playing them. So being the game changer that it is, for now, I'm thinking solid A tier for the Nintendo Entertainment System. It's a great system. I don't know if it's S. When we get to the end, it might be an S at the end. So we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out at the very end. But I'm gonna start off, because I don't want to start off S right away. You can't start off S, right? You gotta talk things through and things like that. And again, like I said, this is kind of my own ranking for these systems. So we're gonna go S with the Nintendo. And then next up will be the Game Boy, because I'm trying to do this in order of release. So the Game Boy was definitely out before the Super Nintendo. Now, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Pocket, we might get a little fuzzy here with when they came out, so I might be wrong on a couple of those. But I know the Game Boy came out before the Super Nintendo. So the Game Boy, man, again, kind of a game changer, because I grew up in this era, so I know from experience. I was there, you all. I was there. The Game Boy was solid, man. Like, I have it. I don't even know if you can see it over my shoulder anymore with the stuff. Yeah, you can kind of see it if I lean back. I've got a Shadowbox Game Boy back there. And it was fun. I remember I got it. I won it in a bowling league. Like, it was a father-son bowling league. And I guess our team did well enough. And I got to pick from a Game Boy or a bike. And I already had bikes. I mean, it was no brainer taking the Game Boy, and it came with Tetris, one of the most fun games. Like, I love Tetris so much. It's one of my all-time favorite franchises. So, but the Game Boy has not aged well compared to some of Nintendo's other handhelds. There are a lot of fun games on there, like the Mario games, the Wario games on Game Boy are a lot of fun. Tetris is a blast, but it's kind of like going back and playing a lot of these Game Boy games. It's kind of like going back and playing Atari. There were gems for the time, but a lot of them you kind of go back and play them, like Killer Instincts on the Game Boy, which I had, Street Fighter 2 on the Game Boy, Mortal Kombat on the Game Boy, like games that were coming out for like the Super Nintendo and things like that they would do ports for the Game Boy weren't as great. It did have some fun games though, so I think we're gonna start the Game Boy. It's gonna be solid B tier. Like, it might be an A at the end of it, but I'm just kind of like looking back and thinking the games that were on the Game Boy. You got your Metroids. Oh, I might be talking it into an A tier, but we'll get back to it. We'll get back to it. We'll get back to it. And so I want to say next up. No, I think next up is the Super Nintendo, because I think the Pocket and the Color came out after the Super Nintendo. I think so. We're gonna go Super Nintendo. I go back and forth like my favorite Nintendo systems. I'll talk about some of the others. I don't want to give any spoilers. But Super Nintendo is definitely one of my favorites. I still remember getting my Game Boy and my Nintendo too. But I got this for my 10th birthday. It had only been out for, I think, like a year, maybe 2 years, but I think just a year when I got it. Maybe like a year and a half. I'd have to like look up the. Hi, Alan Burke. How you doing, man? Trying to do two things here because I'm doing the tier list. The chat is over here, so I got to look over here every once in a while. Man, how you doing? We're ranking some Nintendo systems today. Yeah, so Super Nintendo, I remember getting this bad boy, my 10th birthday. Like I said, I think it had only been out for like a year and a half at this point. It hadn't been out too long, maybe only a year at this point. But I remember I got this from my parents for my birthday. It obviously came with Super Mario World, and then I got Madden 93 with it. And then my grandmother, knowing that I was getting a Super Nintendo for my birthday, she went to Hills up in Lockport, New York. Dude, the SNES is goated. It is one of my favorites. But yeah, so my grandma going to Hills in Western New York, in Lockport, New York, just outside Buffalo, asked the clerk, "What's a good game for my 10-year-old grandson to play? Like, should I get for him for his birthday? He's getting his first Super Nintendo." And God bless that clerk. I wish I knew who that clerk was, because I would send them a gift package. That clerk said to my grandmother, "The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. You need to get him that game." And so she did. And holy hell, that's still like one of my favorite Zelda games. I go between that and like Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild is my favorite Zelda game all the time. But like Mr. Allen saying, this is a goated console, so that it's a strong S tier. And like I said, I'm going to change some of these rankings at the end, possibly after we get everything ranked. I don't see the SNES leaving an S rank though. And just for clarifications, I'm not limiting any number of S, A, B, C, D tiers. Things will lie where they lie. Nintendo makes a lot of good systems and a lot of fun systems. Like, there's no F tier on here because there is no such thing as an F tier Nintendo console. So next up, I believe the next release is the Game Boy Pocket. What this had in the advantage is over the Game Boy, smaller form factor. You could actually fit it in a jean pocket, kind of. Sharper screen and everything like that, but it only played Game Boy games. So, I mean, not much of an improvement not much of an improvement to get the A tier. So I think that's going to be solid B tier with Nintendo. Let me look at that screen a little closer. Yeah, I think that's the Pocket. I think this is just American releases. If that was the Game Boy Light, which when I'm in Japan next month, I will be looking for one at a reasonable price to bring home. But yeah, the Game Boy Pocket, other than the form factor and the bit sharper screen, not much of an improvement over the Game Boy to give it, an A tier status. So solid B tier for that one. Fun system, but I mean, it's just another Game Boy, so can't really do much there with that. And that brings us to another Game Boy. The Game Boy Color. Now this one is a fun one because again we get the good form factor of the Game Boy Pocket right here. Same fun games, but in color, and it also kind of does the color for the older games. It will give it kind of a color hue, much like the Game Boy, the Super Nintendo, or the Super Game Boy did for the Super Nintendo. But you did get your exclusive games for this. You got Legend of Zelda. Oh, what is that one called? The DS game, but DX. And so because of that, because you get the color, better screen, everything like that, I think Game Boy Color's got to go A tier because it did improve on what these two systems did, and it did have its own exclusive games. And man, there was a lot of hype for the Game Boy Color, and it was a lot of fun. So moving on, we've got the Nintendo 64, and if you can tell by my logo, I love the Nintendo 64. In fact, this channel originally, like this channel, the Twitch channel, as well as the YouTube channel, started because I was going to just play retro N64 games on the channel. That was kind of my thing that I was going to do, and the channel kind of evolved differently from that. I still play the retro games, but it's not the focus of the channel anymore. But man, this system's so good. Like, I have so many fun memories, and you are right, Alan. The N64 is so good. I have so many fond memories of this system. Playing with my friends in middle, like this is how long the system lasted as far as like playability for me. I got it in middle school. I was, I think, a rising 8th grader when the system came out. Yes, I was a rising 8th grader. And so I got it that September. No, I was an 8th grader because it came out in September. Maybe it came out right before school started. I think it did. I think it came out the week before school started because we used to go to school after Labor Day. So I got it right before school started, and throughout middle school, played with my buddies. We played GoldenEye, Mario Kart, things like that. And then through high school, my buddies and I were still playing it. We were playing the wrestling games, the Mario Party games, Conker's Bad Fur Day. In fact, even into college. And once I started college, I think my first year of college is when the GameCube came out. Even into college, like with the GameCube release, we're still playing the N64. We're still playing No Mercy. We're still playing, the Mario Party games, Star Fox, GoldenEye, things like that. Like the longevity of this system, like yes, sales wise, it didn't do the best for Nintendo. It kind of got its ass kicked. Was it June 23rd? No, I guess it was summer, so I was a rising 8th grade. I don't know why I had September in my head. Thanks, Alan. But yeah, I think that does link up because I was mowing lawns to earn the money to get it, and then I tore my Achilles playing baseball, and I couldn't mow lawns anymore. My mom, who said she would never buy me another system, actually floated me, I think, the $75 I was short to buy it. So yeah, June 23rd, because I know I was playing it before school started, so. I don't know why it's September stuck in my head. Probably something else came out in September from Nintendo. But actually, I think the GameCube came out. I know the GameCube came out in the fall because I was already back in school for college when that came out. But yeah, the longevity of this system, just playing with my buddies and things like that, and I still enjoy playing it. Like whenever I have a game up that I played on the channel, people always like, oh, I love that game. I love that game. And I've gone back to, I'm working on, if you follow the channel enough, I'm working on getting a complete N64 collection. So one of my all-time favorite systems, obviously, and this, like the SNES, I don't think is leaving this S tier rank. And I know some people point to sales and disappointing sales and figures like that and a lot of cancellations for the system, but man, at that moment, if you want to talk the Nintendo 64, the PlayStation, and the Sega Saturn, the big three systems that were out at the time. Yes, the PlayStation kicked its butt in sales and things like that and had a lot more games. But man, I don't know of a system I had more fun playing with in my youth than the N64. That was just a fantastic system. And I think if you talk to a lot of Nintendo fans, they're going to, like if you ask them to pick their top 10 N64 games, I guarantee you there's going to be so much crossover. Like some people... Like you'll have matchups of like 6 or 7 games probably. If you do that, the same thing with the PlayStation. Again, it goes to the plethora of games on the PlayStation. But I don't think you're going to get too much crossover between people picking their favorite PlayStation games against people picking their favorite N64 games, because man, the N64 had some solid releases on it, and unlike some of these future Nintendo systems we're about to go through, it wasn't just first party stuff that was solid releases. It was also third party, the little support the N64 did get. All right, next up we got the GBA, the original Game Boy Advance, and I bought this on release, and it's one of those things like I did not appreciate it when I had it. I bought a few games for it, but I mostly just played my N64 and my Super Nintendo. I wasn't really playing a lot of handheld stuff because we weren't doing too many family, because this came out when I was in high school, so we weren't doing that many family trips when I was in high school. And when we did, I kind of drove some of it because I enjoyed driving. So I didn't have the time to play the GBA, and I didn't play it on the bus to school. Actually, this came out, I think, after I had my driver's license anyway, so I wasn't even riding the bus to school. So I wasn't afforded a lot of handheld time, because when I was playing video games, it was generally at home. And, I just wasn't playing it that much. And honestly, the only games I can point to for the GBA, and again, my personal opinion, your results may vary, are Super Nintendo remakes, like the Mario collection that was like Super Mario World, Super Mario World 2, Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers 2, Super Mario Brothers 3, like, were just kind of like N64 ports. Did have a couple fun its own releases, like the Metroid series that it got for it. And I know a lot of people like the Mega Man Battle series, but it wasn't that big for me. Though Final Fantasy Tactics on this system was awesome. But I think what hurts it is no backlight. It's kind of like, why aren't we getting a backlight, Nintendo, for this system? Again, because Nintendo's being kind of cheap. And I think just because I don't have the memories, for me, I think I got to rank the GBA C tier. It had some cool functionality with the GameCube, which I think is going to be next. I think that came out before the SP. But yeah, I can't point to anything on the GBA that really stood out to me that I can say like, oh yeah, this is a B tier or an A tier system. Just kind of a C tier. It had some decent games, but for me there was no game changer on it. There were some game changers on these systems, which is why I have them ranked so much higher. For me, GBA, just the link cable was cool, but no real game changers on this system. And that leads us to the GameCube. Now, if I were doing the GameCube back when it first came out in the early 2000s, I did like it, but again, like I said, I went back playing my N64 a lot more than I played my GameCube. However, in retrospect, in hindsight, in playing my GameCube in modern times with a lot more games, I gotta say, man, the GameCube is a fantastic system. Like I totally like undersold it back in the day. I don't know why I did that. It is a fun. I think it's because I was playing more Xbox then, playing Halo, going to LAN parties and things like that, that I just did not appreciate the GameCube. And as of now, I'm not going to put it S tier. It's close though. I mean, if I do, I'm going to redo this list in a few years because I'm also working on a complete Japanese collection for the Nintendo GameCube. So it's not S tier yet, but it might get there. I do have my Flippy drive coming, and I'm going to have a lot of ROMs downloaded to that. But I think for now, GameCube, solid A tier. It's a fun system. It's got a lot going for it. It's got a lot of great games, and I've got a lot of games on my backlog to play for this. So, I mean, when I revisit this list in a couple years, this might be an S tier. But for now, I think solid A tier. And so, with that said, we are now coming to the Game Boy Advance SP. Now, again, I'm going to stand by not a lot of game-changing games for it, but the form factor of this is great. The backlight is fantastic, and I've been looking for a decent price one to pick up for myself to have in my collection, even though I do like this purple sideways one better. And when I do go to Japan, that's another thing I'm really looking for is a Game Boy Advance. But given that this has the backlight and definitely a greater improvement on this, and with its clamshell thing, I think that leads into the Nintendo DS coming out. I think solid B tier for the Game Boy Advance SP. Oh, on my release list, I totally skipped over the Virtual Boy. This is again something I want for my collection. It's the only Nintendo system I've never owned because I count like all the I had a DS and I had a 3DS, so I count kind of like all these DSs as one family, which I think for sales wise they're also counted too. Um, but I never had the Virtual Boy. A neighbor of mine who was super rich, he had the Virtual Boy, and it was cool. It was fun, but totally just a failure of a system. I think because of the red lines and the headaches and the fact that it was kind of a portable system, but not really because you had to play with the stand because you couldn't strap it to your head like a real virtual reality system. And this is going to be I think, probably our only D tier. It's one of those things that people like myself. I want one. I'm going to buy one if I find one for a reasonable price. But I'm probably never going to play it. Like, having a working one would be cool just so I could like play it and be like, oh, this is cool. But I don't need a working one. I just kind of want a completed one. It doesn't have to be working, just to kind of sit in the shelf over there or my other Nintendo shelf over there, just as kind of a trophy to display it. And I don't think anybody like misses the Virtual Boy. I don't think anybody pines for that, other than they just want it as part of their collection. So that's why it gets a D tier. Cool, kind of ahead of its time functionality for the Nintendo. Like, maybe some of this tech was reused for the 3DS later on, but nothing like, there's just nothing about it that anybody's like, oh man, it had this killer game for it, man. You need a Virtual Boy or a Virtual Boy emulator to play this game. No one talks about the Virtual Boy like that. They just like it because it kind of looks cool, and they want it on their shelf. They don't really want to play it. So D tier for that one. All right. So next up, I'm trying to think. I think the Wii came before the DS. So we're going to do the Wii. And the Wii, loved it when it first came out. I loved Wii Sports. I loved Twilight Princess. But you know what I didn't love? I didn't like forced motion control. I really wish Nintendo... I would have played my Wii a lot more had Nintendo not like pushed motion control in every game. Like, it's cool playing Zelda and swinging the sword and doing all this fun stuff with it and using, you know, the nunchuck to block. And I'm a lefty, so I always had the Wii in my left hand, not my right hand. But there were sometimes, you know, I had a long day at class or I had a long day at work, and I don't want to be swinging my arms everywhere to play a Mario game or a Zelda game and things like that. I want to sit down on my couch and just play. You know, they had the I don't know if it was the Pro Controller, whatever they called the classic controller for the Wii. I don't remember what it was called, but they had that. And if we could have just plugged that into our Wiimote and played, you know, Zelda normally, played Mario Galaxy normally, and, you know, a host of the other games like Metroid Prime normally without having to use the Wiimote, that would have been great. And it would have been great if, like, you could switch on the fly. It's like, okay, I do want to swing the sword for an hour. Let me just switch to those controls, something like that. But they didn't. They forced the motion controls on you, and it just got annoying. And my Wii started collecting dust because of that, because I didn't want to, you know, do that. So that, I think the forced Wii controls, because this would have been an A system. I mean, up until the Switch, it was Nintendo's best-selling system. And it's got a lot of fun. Like, Wii Sports was great for it. I loved playing MLB The Bigs for it, as well as Tiger Woods Golf for it. But because I had to do motion controls every time I play, but pretty much any time I played a game, it does. But the Virtual Console was awesome. Oh, man. You know what? I've talked myself into it. When I was doing my complaining, I forgot about the Virtual Console. The Virtual Console, you know, the Nintendo News Channel, the Weather Channel. I had a lot of fun with this system now that I think about it. A tier. See? Sometimes you talk yourself into something when you remember something. And so next up, it is the Nintendo DS. And I'm kind of... the DS systems, here's the 3DS. I'll do the 3DSs different, but I'm going to do all 1, 2, 3, 4, because that's the DS XL. I'm going to do the DSs all the same, because the form factor changes a little bit, and in all honesty, the DS Lite, I do like its slimmer form factor better, but to me, the DSs are all the same. There's not much of a difference in them other than they change a little bit, and, you know, you got your XLs and things like that. Solid handheld system, and I think they're all gonna go in the A section because I think they all deserve it. I think they're all a solid A. Like I said, I'm kind of lumping them all together. They all do a little bit differently. I will say the DS I think it was, where they got rid of the Game Boy Advance slot. That was, you know what, we're gonna make one change. DS Lite stays up there, but the I's and the XL get tiered down one because they got rid of the GBA slot. They're a B because they're no longer backwards compatible like the DS Lite and the DS, which gave you the GBA slot. So actually, I think that's the I and that's the Lite right there. So these two get an A because of their backwards compatibility. These two, however, they're hurt a little bit because, they don't have that backwards capability anymore. So it was kind of a downgrade and, just kind of a meh moment for it. So moving on now, I think, Wii U is next up because I think the Wii U came out, then the 3DS. The Wii U, I have always looked, in hindsight, after the Switch came out, I kind of looked at the Wii U as it was a predecessor to the Switch, but kind of a trial run for the Switch. The gamepad right here, I felt that was like they were practicing with this tech for handheld gaming and console gaming combined, and they were not ready for the Switch yet, and so we kind of got this as a mid-gen refresh, like very much like this. The confusion with the Wii and the Wii U about this being an add-on instead of a completely new console. Again, this was kind of in between the Switch and the Wii, and I think if this was more compatible with the Wii, since the graphics weren't that much better, it would have sold better. But again, I think this was Nintendo testing the waters for a handheld console hybrid, and it just was not ready to be on its own. So it was kind of tethered to the system. So I like the effort by it, and it does have some fun games. In fact, Mario Maker for the Wii U is awesome. And again, we got Smash Brothers, Mario 8, things like that. It did fail in sales, but you know what? I might have played this more than I played my Wii when I think about it. And again, it had the Virtual Console. It had more games for the Virtual Console. In fact, it introduced N64. Was it N64 on the Wii? I'm trying to remember. But I can't hate on this too much. I think it's a solid B. Like, it's a solid effort by Nintendo. I think, again, the technology was not here for the Switch yet, and they were just trying. They were trying something new. They were doing that Nintendo thing of trying their new thing, and it didn't work out. But I still had a lot of fun with it. I would say like it's on par with the Game Boy Advance SP, Game Boy as far as fun factor, kind of thing like that. So solid B tier there. And now we come to the 3DS, and we'll do the 3DS and the 3DS XL. Though this might have been a 3DS XL too, and not the DS XL. I might have screwed that up. Sorry about that, but we'll still leave that there. The 3DS, 3DS XL, great systems. Again, right on par, I think, with the DS and the DS Lite. I would say these are solid A systems. The 3D functionality was cool. I almost never played with 3D though. I usually just played in 2D. I would do 3D every once in a while for some cool depth effects, but almost never played it that much. But I did really, really like it, and I still have my 3DS XL to this day to play like Chrono Trigger, Tetris DS, and some various other DS games that I really enjoy. So I have it on there for that. So again, the fun factor and the fact that I have this system and I still play it long after it's been gone as far as production gives it that A tier. All right, we're going to move on to, I can't remember, I think the 2DS came out before the Switch, but we're going to move on to the 2DS too. It's basically the 3DS, but takes away the 3D effect as well as no longer clamshell design. It's a really weird, awkward shape, and it gets a downgrade. Like, it is a definite downgrade, and I'm debating between B and C tier. Like, I really, other than like little kids, I don't know anybody who had a 2DS. And I don't think they might have been popular. Like, the clamshell one was probably more popular than this, because I remember they did come out with a clamshell one later. So I think this has got to be in line with the 2DS, the DS Lite or the DSi and the DSi XL. As far as it's just the B tier. It's a 3DS with 3D stripped out and a stupid design. So there you go. All right, now we're coming up on the Nintendo Switch. So we got the Switch and the Switch Lite. Awesome system. I love the fact that it's on the go and you can play at home. Like, I remember when this got announced, I was so excited, and when it went live for pre-orders, rushed right over to GameStop, got my pre-order in. I was at the midnight launch, got it, took it home, played Zelda Breath of the Wild, took it on the flight to Japan, 100%ed Breath of the Wild on the flight, getting all the temples and everything like that. This system, I love it to its core. I love the Nintendo Online, where you get to play everything. Well, not everything. There are games missing, but I mean, you get to play Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, Sega Genesis. I think that's all the systems on there. I might be leaving one out. I don't think I am. And maybe with the Switch 2, we got more coming. Like there's rumors of GameCube and Sega Saturn, possibly Dreamcast, which would be fantastic. Catching up on chat real quick. 2DS is just bad. Yeah, I think it's bad. Like, you've convinced me, Alan. It's going down to a C tier. It's not quite Virtual Boy bad, but it is kind of just one of those things. It's an abomination. Just look at it. It's just dumb looking. But you got your Switch for Christmas, and it's really unique and good. Yeah, I completely agree, man. The fact that you can go from playing on console, on your TV, pull it right up, pick up where you left off, play handheld mode. I remember when this first came out, I was not remote working. I worked in an office. I'd play it on my commute to work, like on the train into work, playing my my Switch, getting home, plugging into the system, continue playing on my TV. It is one of my favorite systems. I can't wait for Switch 2. And yeah, this is easily S tier. Now, the Switch Lite, it's got all the same fun factor, all the same games as the Switch, but you cannot play it on your TV. So, kind of going from boom, big S tier, and then that's got to be an A tier because again, it has all the same games. You can play it as a handheld mode, and you have all the same features and everything, but you can't play it on your TV. So I think it gets a downgrade for the from the regular Switch, and so it gets an A. And it's not on the tier list, but if the OLED model of the Switch, that too would be an S tier. Kind of thing. So just looking at my list and how we have it, I think we got a solid S tier right here. The Super Nintendo, so many fun games to play for this to go back to. Same with the N64. Now I know this generation, like the N64, the PlayStation, the Sega Saturn generation, like a lot of people are like, some of those games are kind of hard to go back to. I disagree. Like if you play them with the actual controllers that came with the system, I think they're great. Alan, before I had a Switch Lite and just did not like it. Yeah, I mean, not wrong there. It's just the Switch being handheld only. I'm like those sold like gangbusters. Like they sold a ton of Switch Lites, but I don't really know who's that for. Like, why would you want a Switch that was handheld only? I mean, the main draw of the Switch is handheld and console. So yeah, the Switch Lite doesn't make much sense to me, but I mean, it does to some people because it sold a ton. But yeah, N64, again, a ton of fun games to go back to. I play my N64 a lot. I play a lot of it on the Switch online expansion when I'm just playing in handheld mode. Great system. And then the Switch. The Switch might go down, like, because I'm going to do this list with all the systems eventually. But the Switch might go down as my favorite system of all time. Like, it is... You can play a lot of these fun games from all these eras, and then the modern Switch games are great. And again, the handheld and console mode are fantastic. So I think this is a lock right here, this S tier. Going down to the A tier, solid again with the Nintendo. So close to being an S tier, but can't have too many S tiers. Game Boy Color, I think that's a solid A. Like that one's close. The Game Boy, or not the Game Boy, the GameCube, I think the more I play this, the closer this gets to an S tier. And in fact, when I come back and redo this list, when I do the list for all the systems, this bad boy might end up being an S tier by then. It's just it's got a lot of games, so underrated. Maybe Nintendo's most underrated system, because people will talk about the Switch, 64, the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo. Not a lot of people talk about the GameCube, and that's a shame. It's got some great games on it. And then I think the Wii. The only thing I think that stops the Wii from being an S tier is the forced motion controls. If a lot of those games, like Zelda, like Mario, Metroid Prime, allowed you to play with the Pro controller instead of just using the Wiimote, I think this would be an S tier. Because again, it had a lot of solid games, but a lot of games I didn't finish because I didn't want to do motion control. And then your DS lineup, along with the 3DS, solid system, a lot of fun, a lot of great games for it. Not quite S tier because it's hard to make a handheld only an S tier because the smaller screen, the limitations on the games and graphically and functionality wise. So solid A tiers right there. And then the Switch Lite, again, all the great things about the Switch with the exception of being able to play on your TV. And Alan, you are so right. The GameCube is great, and like I said, this one will probably be an S tier next time I do one of these lists. I've been delving into it because I didn't play as many games when I originally owned it. And in fact, kind of funny, I own 3 different GameCubes right now. I have a silver one over there on my CRT-TV. I've got the spice orange one from Japan, and then I've got a purple one that was donated by my buddy Gabby. So the GameCube is slowly climbing because if I'd have done this list like a year ago, the GameCube probably would have been B tier, and it's climbing, and it might be an S tier soon. And yeah, I'm with you on the Wii with the motion controls. Not a fan of the motion controls. I think they're fun for sports games like Wii Sport, Tigerwood Golf, MLB The Bigs. They're kind of fun for that, but if you're doing like a long gaming session, man, just swinging your arms all around to play a game, that gets tiring. And I play games to relax. I don't play games for a workout. And then we move down to the B tier. Mostly handhelds, but we got the Wii U there. The Wii U was that's one of those systems, man. I think if it baked in the oven for a little bit longer, I think it would have been better. I think Nintendo kind of rushed it to market because the Wii had kind of quit selling, so they needed something new to kind of boost sales, and it is what it is. And then we got a solid lineup of handhelds. I mean, we got the Game Boy Light or Game Boy Pocket. Game Boy Light was Japan only. DS Lite, or the Game Boy Advance SP, DS Lite, or DSi, and the DS XL. All solid systems. And then our C tier, Game Boy Advance had a backlight. It might have been up there with the SP, but trying to play that game or trying to play that system in hand without actual light source coming from it is a pain in the butt. And then the 2DS, just kind of ugly and stripped out all the 3DS features except for you could play 3DS games. So I mean, just goes down there. And then lastly, staying at the D spot. Maybe it will change if I actually find a working one and I enjoy it. But the Virtual Boy, just that abortion of a system for Nintendo. The only ball dropping by Gunpei Yokoi, the legendary inventor of the GameCube and Game & Watch for Nintendo. The Virtual Boy, I think if Nintendo hadn't been so cheap with it, if they would have put a little more money into it and actually had full color screens and some other features to it, it might have been a better system. But man, you can't play with those red lines for longer than 15 minutes, and then your head starts hurting. It's just one of those systems. So yeah, I think we got a solid list here, and yeah, I don't think there are any complaints about this one. So I think I'm definitely going to save this, and we're gonna come back to it in like a year or two, and we're gonna see if any of these kind of change their ranking. Because I do plan on picking up a Game Boy Color, and one of these advances in the near future. I'm gonna start playing them more, and maybe they'll grow on me, much like the GameCube's been growing on me. But yeah, that is what we have for our solid systems of the day. And as I go back to OBS. I thank everybody for watching. Alan, thank you for talking along with me, commenting, helping me do this list. You did have some input, man. You did convince me on that 2DS that it needed to be lower. I appreciate that. I was about to give it too much high of a rank. And so I'm going to end the stream here. I'm going to be back later tonight. I'm going to be playing some sort of classic game. I'm thinking Chrono Trigger, maybe make Mega Man X. I've been having a hankering to play some Mega Man X, but thanks for hanging out, guys. And if you're watching this later on YouTube, thanks for watching. Don't forget to give a like. Give a like. And if you liked what you saw, give a subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And we're trying to get to 500 subscriptions before the Japan trip at the end of March. So that'd be great. Alan, again, thank you for hanging out, man. You take it easy. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye now.